machines, extensions of the men inside them, hurtled towards the line, locked in a final, desperate duel that had the entire world holding its breath. Lewis Hamilton, in his Mercedes, a silver arrow streaking down the main straight, was a fraction of a car length ahead. But Max Verstappen, his Red Bull a snarling beast on the attack, was pulling alongside, his tires screaming their last protest. The roar of 200,000 fans at Silverstone was a physical force, a wave of sound crashing over the circuit, the two cars inseparable as they crossed the line in a photo finish. This was not just a race, it was history being written. The raw emotion of that moment was the culmination of a pressure cooker race. The day began under the classic British summer sky, a patchwork of grey clouds and hopeful sunshine. The pre-race grid was a hive of controlled chaos. Lewis Hamilton, having secured pole by a scant 0.07 of a second, sat in his W17, the engine silent. He looked straight ahead, his focus absolute. Beside him, Max Verstappen performed his final checks in the RB22, his body language radiating an intense, almost predatory energy. The air was thick with anticipation. The formation lap began, a slow, deliberate procession that only served to heighten the suspense. The cars snaked around the legendary circuit, warming their tires, the drivers mentally rehearsing the first corner, the first lap, the first battle. As the 20 cars lined up in their grid slots, a hush fell over the grandstands. The 5 red lights illuminated, 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 one by one. It's a moment of pure stillness, the only sound the thumping of your own heart. Then darkness. The lights went out, and the symphony of 20 engines exploded into a deafening roar. Hamilton got a perfect start, his Mercedes launching off the line cleanly. Verstappen, however, was marginally better. He immediately tucked into Hamilton's slipstream, a shadow glued to the gearbox of the leading car. The run down to Abbey, the first high-speed corner, was a breathtaking display of nerve. They swept through the corner with inches to spare, Hamilton holding the inside line and Verstappen forced to hang on around the outside. The crowd gasped, then cheered as the two gladiators emerged still locked together. For the first few laps, the gap between them was never more than half a second. It was a high-speed chess match, each driver probing for a weakness, testing the other's resolve.
Okay, Lewis, pace is good. Just manage the gap.
He's struggling for rear grip in turn 7. Keep the pressure on, Max.
The early laps set the tone for the entire race. It was clear that this would not be a simple procession. Verstappen would feign a move into Brooklands, forcing Hamilton to defend, then back off, saving his tires. Hamilton, in turn, would put in a blistering sector time just when it seemed Max was about to get close enough to use the drag reduction system. A flap on the rear wing that opens to give a speed boost. The fans were on their feet, their heads turning in unison as the two cars flashed past, a blur of silver and dark blue. This was Formula One at its absolute finest, a pure, unfiltered battle for supremacy between the two best drivers in the world. As the race moved into its second act around lap 18, the focus shifted from pure on-track fighting to the pit wall. Strategy was now king. Mercedes and Red Bull were locked in a game of high-stakes poker. Red Bull blinked first. Box, Max, box. We are going for the undercut, came the call. Verstappen dived into the pit lane, his crew performing a lightning-fast 2.1-second stop for a fresh set of hard compound tyres. The undercut is a classic F1 strategy. You pit earlier than your rival and use the extra grip from new tyres to post fast laps, hoping to be ahead when they eventually pit themselves. The pressure was now squarely on the Mercedes pit wall. Hamilton was instructed to stay out.
Push now, Lewis.
We need everything you've got. Hammer time. He responded instantly, setting the fastest lap of the race. The Mercedes strategy was to extend the stint, to run longer on the medium tyres and have a significant tyre advantage in the final stages. It was a risk. If Hamilton couldn't build a big enough gap, Verstappen's fresh rubber would allow him to cruise past. The timing screens were a sea of purple and green sector times, as both drivers pushed their machinery to the absolute limit. Purple sector, times, green sector, times. The crowd watched, mesmerized by this invisible battle being fought against the clock. When Hamilton finally pitted on lap 26, the world held its breath. His stop was flawless, a 2.3-second masterpiece of teamwork. But as his Mercedes was dropped from its jacks, and he accelerated down the pit lane, the red of Verstappen's Red Bull flashed past on the main straight. The blue of Verstappen's Red Bull flashed past on the main straight. The undercut had worked, but only just. Verstappen was now the race leader, but Hamilton was right behind him, his tyres 8 laps fresher. The strategic gamble had paid off for Red Bull in terms of track position, but it had set up a thrilling chase to the finish. The hunter had become the hunted. Now the dynamic of the race was completely transformed. Hamilton, with his fresher tyres, was the aggressor. He began to relentlessly stalk Verstappen, closing the gap 10th by 10th, lap by lap. Verstappen, in response, had to drive with incredible precision, managing his older tyres to ensure they would last the distance while defending from a charging 7-time world champion. The team radios crackled with constant information about tyre temperatures, brake wear, and gap times. "He's closing, half a second a lap," Verstappen was told.
Don't worry, Max, you have the pace. Just keep it clean.
The stage was set for an epic final confrontation. The final 15 laps were an exercise in pure, unadulterated tension. The gap between Verstappen and Hamilton had stabilized at just under a second, putting Hamilton tantalizingly close to being able to use his DRS. Every lap, as they crossed the detection point, the world watched to see if the gap would dip below that magic 1-second marker. On lap 42, it happened. The light on Hamilton's dashboard flashed, and as he exited the final corner, the rear wing of his Mercedes snapped open. The silver car seemed to slingshot towards the Red Bull, the difference in straight-line speed immediately apparent. The crowd roared in anticipation of the move. Verstappen defended like a lion. He positioned his car perfectly down the Wellington Straight, forcing Hamilton to take the long way around into Brooklands. They went into the corner side by side, wheels almost touching, a breathtaking display of car control and mutual trust. Verstappen just held on, his older tyres protesting with a slight slide on the exit. He's defending well, but his rears are finished. "We will get him," Bono calmly assured Hamilton. The battle was relentless. Lap after lap, Hamilton would use the DRS to draw alongside, and lap after lap, Verstappen would use every ounce of his racecraft to keep the lead. The pressure was immense. A single mistake from either driver would be catastrophic. On lap 48, it almost happened. Pushing hard through the high-speed Beckets, the rear of Verstappen's Red Bull stepped out. For a split second, the car was sideways at over 180 miles per hour. With an incredible piece of car control, he caught the slide, losing a few crucial tenths but somehow keeping the lead. The crowd gasped collectively. On the radio, Verstappen's voice was heavy with exertion.
"The tires are gone, man. I have nothing left." His engineer replied, his voice firm. "Just 5 more laps, Max. Bring it home. This is for the win."
The fight was taking its toll on both machines. The cameras showed close-ups of tires blistering, brakes glowing cherry red under deceleration. The drivers themselves were at the limit of human endurance, their bodies subjected to incredible G-forces, their minds processing a constant stream of information while battling for every inch of tarmac. This was more than just a motor race, it was a duel of wills. Each driver knew that the other would not yield. As the race entered its final 2 laps, the gap was down to nothing. They were fighting for every corner, and it was clear this would go down to the wire. The final lap. The words hung in the air, charged with unbelievable significance. Verstappen led Hamilton across the line to start lap 52, the gap a mere 0.2 of a second. Hamilton had the DRS advantage once more and made his move down the hangar straight. He pulled to the inside, his front wing level with Verstappen's rear wheel, thundered towards the fearsome Stowe corner. This time, he looked to have the move done. But Verstappen, braking impossibly late, held on around the outside, forcing Hamilton to back out slightly to avoid a collision. It was a move of supreme bravery and defiance. The crowd was a single, roaring entity, living every twist and turn. Vale corner, club corner. Hamilton was all over the back of the Red Bull, searching, probing for one last opportunity. Verstappen defended with millimeter precision, placing his car perfectly to cover the inside line. It seemed as though he had done enough. He got a clean exit out of the final corner, his engine screaming as he accelerated onto the pit straight for the final time. But Hamilton had one last trick. He tucked his Mercedes right under the rear wing of the Red Bull, gaining a massive tow, a slipstream that sucked him forward. As Verstappen moved slightly to defend the inside, Hamilton jinked to the outside. For the final 200 meters, they were perfectly side by side, a synchronized blur of speed and color. The engines were at their absolute peak, the drivers flat out, their fate to be decided by a few inches. Neither driver flinched. They were two artists painting their masterpiece on the canvas of Silverstone's tarmac. It was the finish that nobody could call. As they crossed the line, the timing screen flickered. For a heart-stopping second, both cars showed the same time. Then, it resolved. P1, Hamilton, the margin, 0.04 seconds. The Mercedes garage erupted in a frenzy of joy and disbelief. On the track, Hamilton raised a hand from his cockpit, not in celebration, but in acknowledgement of the incredible battle. Verstappen coasted to a halt, the silence in his cockpit a stark contrast to the pandemonium outside. He had given everything, and it still wasn't enough. In the moments after the race, the enormity of what had just happened began to sink in. Lewis Hamilton climbed from his car, physically and emotionally drained, and was immediately embraced by his team. Max Verstappen, after sitting in his car for a long moment, emerged to the applause of the entire paddock. Verstappen walked over to the Mercedes car. Hamilton and Verstappen shared a handshake and a quiet word. A moment of profound respect between two warriors. They had pushed each other beyond victory or defeat into the realm of legend. The podium ceremony was an ovation for both men. The analysis began almost immediately. Pundits and fans broke down the final lap, the final corner, the final drag race to the line, frame by frame. It was a finish defined by everything that makes Formula One the pinnacle of motorsport. Red Bull's aggressive undercut, Mercedes' long-game tyre strategy. It was about the flawless execution by the pit crews under immense pressure. It was about the technological marvel of the cars, pushed to their absolute breaking point for 52 laps. And above all, it was about the supreme skill and bravery of the two men at the wheel. This race became an instant classic, a benchmark against which all future close finishes would be measured. It wasn't just the tiny margin of victory that made it so special, but the quality of the racing that preceded it. There were no crashes, no safety cars, no artificial drama. It was a pure, sustained battle of pace, intellect, and nerve from lights out to checkered flag. Clips of the final lap went viral, introducing a whole new audience to the thrill of the sport. It was a perfect advertisement for Formula One, showcasing its unique blend of human drama and cutting-edge technology. Ultimately, this finish broke the world because it reminded us of the human element at the heart of this technological sport. It was a story of two incredible athletes refusing to be beaten, using every tool at their disposal to gain the slightest advantage, all while maintaining a deep-seated respect for one another. It demonstrated that even in a world of data and aerodynamics, a race can still be won by a single heartbeat, by a fraction of a second born from pure will. This was the day Formula One produced a finish so perfect it felt like a scene from a movie, yet it was breathtakingly real. This finish will be spoken about for generations.